Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk Chicago. We're talking Chicago Bears. We're talking Chicago Cubs with Larry Hawley. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Joey Christopoulos. Follow me at Joey Sports Guy on socials, filling in for John Zaglul. Such an honor to continue to sub in for him this summer. Got a great show ahead of you. But first, let's just talk about our wonderful radio affiliates that are broadcasting our show across the great state of Illinois. Got to shout out 98.3 The Life, WKAN, 105.5 The Ticket, ACTV, JED TV, WJOB, Cities 92.9 Talk FM, and 101.1 Peoria Sports Radio. Got to get the number just right. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching us on YouTube, please comment and question below. Throw on a like, throw on a subscribe. Your support means the world to us, especially this summer, as we gear up for a fantastic summer of Chicago Cubs baseball, hopefully Chicago Bears football, and then, of course, the Bulls and Blackhawks coming back. Are we going to talk about the White Sox? I don't know. I will. I'll get around to it at some point. Right now, they are not worth my time. Great show coming up. Larry Hawley is a guest. Super excited to talk about Chicago Bears and Cubs with him. Real quick, before we go throw over to him, I just want to throw out my poll question for the day. If you're listening to this on the radio, drive safely when you get home. Head on over to YouTube, Sports Talk Chicago, and answer and comment below. My question for you revolves around the Bears wide receiver position. We're taping this on a Tuesday. You might be watching this on a Thursday or Friday. News just came down that the Houston Texans have extended wide receiver Nico Collins with a 3-year, $72 million deal. And it had me scratching my head and asking the question, when it comes to the Chicago Bears, I know we talked about it when we traded for Keenan Allen, and it hasn't happened yet. And DJ Moore, who's currently playing under a 3-year, $61 million deal. My postal question for the week is, who deserves it? And who gets the extension first? DJ Moore or Keenan Allen? I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Who deserves it more? Who gets it? Now, Keenan Allen, perhaps we can debate, is a more decorated player, more receptions, more receiving yards, one of the greatest Los Angeles or San Diego Charger wide receiver that's ever played for that franchise coming over. I get it. He's 32 years old, but his ability on and off the field to not only teach Rome Odunze, but hopefully produce for the Chicago Bears is going to be innumerable this season. I can't wait to watch it. But again, at the other side, DJ Moore has 2 years left on his deal at $16 million a year. $16 million this year, $16 million in 2025. So in my opinion, as it stands right now, I don't think you're extending Keenan Allen this summer. I think you're going to play it out. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he's a productive player for the Chicago Bears, teaches Rome a thing or two, and then they're going to head into the offseason. If DJ Moore plays one more year on his current contract, I guarantee you he at least will either say something or hold out of camp, or will not show up to training camp in 2025 ready to roll without a new deal. So as it stands right now, if you had your choice, if you could sign one of them up, Keenan Allen would probably be a shorter-term deal, maybe a more decorated football player, maybe a little bit less on the AAV, or would you give that 3 or 4 year to DJ Moore? And how much money would you give him? You got to beat that 3-year, $72 million deal that Nico Collins just got. So what is it? 3 for 80? Would you give 3 for 90 to DJ Moore? Look, I think DJ Moore, younger player, more productive. I think he's a guy worth investing in, but it is a question to debate, and I want you guys to answer, comment, and question below. Who would you give a contract extension to first? Would you give it to DJ Moore, or would you give it to Keenan Allen? Talking Chicago Bears, all that and more coming up right now. He's been a returning guest, not just Sports Talk Chicago, but my past show too as well. You might remember him from his fantastic work for WGN TV, but you could also check out his fantastic Balcony Brew reviews on his socials, and where to find those socials, what better than at Hawley Sports. It's Larry Hawley. Larry, thank you so much for joining Sports Talk Chicago. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful, Joey. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. As people know, I just moved back here. As you see, we're coming up with new backgrounds every single moment along the way here, dealing with thunderstorms every 20 minutes, multiple times a week. I'm loving the Midwest, man, and it's good to be with you. We can call ourselves neighbors now, can't we?
I know, it's fantastic. We're both kind of on the north side area. You're a little farther north than I am, but no, it's great. I actually entered 6 years now living on the north side of Chicago, just north of Wrigley Field. Plenty of beers for the Balcony Brew Review for the summer. So I've already got a couple that are out there. So happy to get that going again. Keep that going. That will turn 5 this year. So I started that in August of 19. And it's still going. People still ask about it. So I'm going to keep it going. We're mixing in some non-alcoholic beers here. I know people have been interested in that. So maybe mix in other stuff. We'll see how it goes.
Big summer ahead, and yeah, I think you've been doing shows. You've been gracious enough to come onto my show now for I think 3 or 4 years. So I definitely owe you one of those balcony brews on my tab coming up soon. Let's dive in. Let's talk a little sports here. I do want to talk some Chicago Cubs with you, but let's just lead with some Chicago Bears talk because this team, as always, every single year, and more so this year than any other, is dominating the sports mindset right now among Chicago sports fans. I want to hit you with something that just came down the pipe here. We're taping this on a Tuesday. You're probably listening to this either on a Thursday or Friday. So this is fresh to us right now. About an hour ago, the Houston Texans just extended, wide receiver Nico Collins, 3 years, $72 million. So I want to kind of ask you as we move forward. I don't think this is going to get done tomorrow, but when you're looking at two guys now, Keenan Allen, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, DJ Moore, he's got 2 years left on his contract. He can maybe play throughout this next year. But then after that, he's going to be looking for the bag too as well. So let's just start here. If you're the Chicago Bears right now and you had an opportunity this summer to lock up one of those two guys, who are you giving that Nico Collins money to, DJ Moore, or would you give it to newly acquired Keenan Allen?
That's hard to say. I mean, I think Keenan is certainly productive. He keeps being productive. Had a great season last year. I mean, in my mind, it goes to Moore. I think Moore has not only is somebody that has produced for you already, but he's someone kind of winding into the prime of his career. I think the best is yet to come for him. I think right now I'd probably give it to Moore. Allen's going to be interesting if he comes up with another great season, because if he's able to build chemistry with Caleb Williams, then you got to really take a look at what they're maybe going to have there and what they might be able to provide. The receiver room is interesting for the Bears because I do wonder, is Allen and Moore, are they the guys? Are the Bears going to look maybe next offseason draft or try to find somebody else? You didn't get the Marvin Harrison Jr. that some might have thought that they were thinking about, but didn't end up panning out. And of course, I'm forgetting it, Rome Odunze, and just how he's going to develop. Maybe he ends up being the guy. Maybe down the road you give him that money. But obviously that's a few years away. I'm really curious to see how those three guys work together, because if they do work really well together, then I'm very interested to see if the Bears do make that investment in Allen and say, hey, look, you know what? You're coming with us. If we believe, and if the Bears are able to crack open a window here, which I think they can maybe with the defense, if everything works out right, as it always does, maybe you are entering the room where you can see the window, maybe crack it. But I would say right now, I think that money goes to Moore. I'm very curious to see what Keenan Allen's going to do, though, because he is somebody who I think can have that next step in his career. He can be a mentor to Rome Odunze, and at the same point, doing the same for Moore. So I don't know. I think at this point you think Moore, but I'm really curious with Keenan Allen. Allen is fascinating. I'm really excited to see how he's going to pan out here.
I completely agree with you, and the Bears are really in a fortuitous and advantageous position when it comes to Keenan Allen, in my opinion, because all those things that you just laid out are not only correct, but not only can the Chicago Bears not necessarily have to pay Keenan Allen beyond this year, but the knowledge that he's going to be able to impart upon Rome Odunze in that locker room this year, and what he's going to be able to bring production-wise onto the field. I know that they talked about when they traded for Keenan Allen about possibly extending him, but I'm with you. I think I would wait on Keenan Allen and do a little bit more of a wait and see. He could still have a career year next year for the Chicago Bears. They could still let him walk and then let Rome Odunze slide right in. So it's a bit of a situation that Ryan Poles has built for himself that allows the Bears to take advantage of it without maybe spending that money, and maybe that money does go to DJ Moore.
Yeah, and the flexibility is still pretty good with the Bears. They're still in a really good position. And I think Poles deserves some credit for that. Obviously, I think in many ways he's on the clock now. As I always said, when you draft a quarterback, you're on the clock. And I think that was certainly the case with Ryan Poles. Ryan Pace. We're already forgetting that name. But I remember Pace. I remember when it came to Ryan Pace in 2017, and I picked Trubisky, I said, okay, you're on the clock now. And everything is sped up. He had his first 2 years there in 15 and 16, where they weren't very good, but they were trying to kind of retool a team that had run out of gas. You saw the 2012, 13, 14 Bears who had some of the remnants of the team that they had before. Even going back to the middle of the 2000s. And those guys were aging. You had some of the new players in there. They had a window, I thought, in 2012 to do something very special. In an NFC that was a little bit open, didn't do it. So that kind of moved away. Pace comes in as GM, and in that third year, he makes that Trubisky selection. That's a make or break for him. Unfortunately, despite the fact that he did a great job to build a good Bears defense, it broke him. He would be out in 2021. So for Poles, I think right now he is still really on the clock right now. I think that's the case for any general manager really in the NFL, because you don't get baseball years to build up a championship team. You don't even get basketball years, or as we see here with Kyle Davidson, hockey years. In the NFL, there isn't that patience. So let's just say that the Bears miss the playoffs this year, miss the playoffs next year, Williams struggles, then you're already on the hot seat. So I am really curious. This is the offense is fascinating. It's funny how maybe that's just the way football is. It always comes down to your offense. And now Poles is on the clock. He's done, I think, a good job to build up the Bears defense. They got much better in the second half of last year. Now comes that offense. Again, very curious. It starts with those three receivers.
It's been a wonderful offseason, and hopefully an offseason that Chicago Bears fans will look back upon and say, where were you the night they drafted Caleb Williams, right? But you're bringing up something so interesting where the work is certainly not done with Ryan Poles by any stretch of the imagination. And you talk about this window that's opening up right now, specifically through Caleb Williams' rookie contract. But on top of that, when you go back and you look at that Pace team, he had some really interesting decisions that he had to make after that 2018 season. Like, he paid Khalil Mack after the trade, but after all the success, he had to decide between Eddie Jackson, Bryce Callahan, and then eventually Kyle Fuller that offseason. And he went with Eddie Jackson. I think we can all debate whether that was the right guy that he picked in the end. And coming up for this defense, I see a little bit of a similar scenario where you have a Jaquan Brisker, who's very, very talented, great in the box, but sometimes injured. Kyler Gordon, athletic, but a slot corner. What is he exactly going to ask for on the market? You just paid off Jalen Johnson. And then a lot of Bears fans this summer are going to be looking at who's going to line up opposite of Montez Sweat on the other side. So it is a lot of decision-making that Ryan Poles is going to have to make. How are you sizing up this Bears defense right now? A lot of people are hanging their hat on, they finished the season top 6 in DVOA, and the turnovers and everything looked bright and rosy to finish the season. But again, over a 17-game schedule, where are you landing with this defense right now? Can they replicate that, or are we looking at a slight regression? Where are you landing?
I think they probably improve, but I think you mentioned something. Well, let me go, not even getting into the negative right now, but I do think that they need somebody on the other end of Sweat. I mentioned before the call that I really like the selection of Austin Booker out of Kansas. I think actually Greenwood, Indiana guy. I worked in Indianapolis. I went to Center Grove High School, power down there. But going to him, really strong pass rusher. Some great film. Getting a chance to watch some of the stuff really after the draft, after the Bears picked him. Maybe he's a guy that breaks through. Maybe he does a little bit more earlier than Travis Gibson was able to do when the Bears took a flyer on him. Sorry, my lights went out here a little bit, and now they're back. Very interesting to see what, if he can make that progress quickly. That's where, for me, I'm looking, where are you going to get that other rush end? They had Ngakoue last year. Do they try to bring him back? They've got to find somebody else on that end. Anything else, you got to feel pretty good. TJ Edwards is kind of surprised he didn't make the Pro Bowl last year. You have Edmonds and Sanborn, they're going to kind of develop, and they'll kind of figure out that rotation. Tyreek Stevenson, I mean, that's going to be one of those things. One of those guys, one of those players that, maybe he's a steal. In many ways, you got to give Pace credit for finding Jalen Johnson and being able to do that. The Bears have had really nice luck here in the second round when it comes to finding defensive players. I think something we don't talk a lot about with Poles was his decision to select 2 defenders in his first draft. So many people wanted wide receivers, went with 2 defenders. I would think it's fair to say that it's paid off. I think paid off significantly, where you have Brisker, who can be somebody who is your cornerstone safety. And you can have Gordon, who is a slot corner, but offers you some flexibility. And again, I really, really like what Stevenson has done. I really like where the Bears defense is going. I think they're still young. They're still growing. You'll get to slowly a full season out of Sweat, but they've got to find a way to get some pressure elsewhere. And I'm kind of neglecting it because we talked about 2018 with the Bears. I've always said probably the most critical players on that defense were Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman. You have to get that push in the middle. And I like what the Bears were able to do with the 2 rookies last year. I think it's solid. I really believe that the Bears have a shot to develop this defense into a top 7-12. If things go out well, let's just say that Booker is amazing. Let's just say he's amazing and they get that second end. What if they make a trade? What if they get that? What if somebody's cut and they get that at the end of the year?
Yeah.
That's where I think that they could be really good. I have very high hopes for the defense, and I don't think it's out of the question that they could be top 5. Lots of things they have to answer. But again, there is that progression. You saw that. And Eberflus is a defensive coach, and the Bears had a lot of turnovers last year. That was Eberflus's bread and butter in Indianapolis. One of the first things you noticed when taking a look at him when the Bears hired him. And they were able to deliver on that, doing so in year 2 and doing so with a defense that still was figuring itself out even towards the end of last year.
Yeah, and it's going to be the real key, I think, is obviously trying to convert what were those turnovers last year more into some of those quarterback hits, maybe some loose balls in the backfield, something that they struggled to do even when their turnover rate was so high last season. So it's interesting to see, especially with Eberflus there, who I think, I get it. He's gotten a haircut. The beard looks good. He's got new threads on. I understand it all, but I still think he's someone that definitely deserves, I don't know about criticism, but the microscope should be on Eberflus this season just as much as it was last year, because halfway through the year, we were talking about possibly canning him and moving on from him. And now it seems like his job is safe, which is kind of weird.